Paperback writer.
This is Joe Cronin.
And Heidi Mancini.
And you are now listening to the From Grief to Relief show on VegasAllNetRadio.com. We are heard live every Thursday between 2 and 3 p.m. We will also be rebroadcast on Saturday at 8 a.m. and Monday at 10 a.m. And you can also buy the From Grief to Relief book on Amazon.com.
And also, too, you can go on the website, Vegas All Net Radio, the From Grief to Relief page, and you can go to our archives, and you can re-listen to the shows, too. All the shows are there that we've done, and they're posted. So you can also go there and find maybe something interests you there.
Oh, well, thanks. I forgot to say that.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay.
I already felt like
you said enough.
Yeah, I already felt like I was over-promoting as it is.
No, you're not. You have to.
Yeah. All right, so today's show, we're going to cover some questions that we were going to do last week. We were going to do a show on questions that women might have for men.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I'm going to represent all men, and Heidi is going to represent all women. Plus, besides all the women that you talk to that have questions, right?
Well, they're all the same.
They're all
most of the questions are always the same.
All right.
You hear the same stuff, so there's something to it.
So I'm assuming... Well, I shouldn't assume anything. What's the first question going to be so I can kind of get an idea of what I'm supposed to do here?
Why don't men have feelings?
Why don't men
Or why don't they
have
show their feelings? Or that's the common thing. Men don't have feelings. They don't feel like we do. They don't show their feelings. They're not emotional. They're, blah, blah, blah. That's a woman's complaint all the time.
That's true. And that's the end of a lot of relationships.
Yes, it is.
Or at least it causes a lot of fights.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, let me ask you something about feelings. Last week's show, we had Scott Thorson.
Yes. It was a very good show.
So tell me what you thought about it, because I have feelings on that, too, that you might not even think about.
Well, I thought it was a very good show. I thought it came together really nicely, and we stayed on the subject that we wanted to, because we didn't want it to be about, the sex and the way the other interviews seemed to be going. Wanted to keep it more about him, and, it kind of touched me because I felt, sympathy for him,
Right.
That he had gone through all that garbage, and of course he's still being, almost, I don't want to say made fun of, but it seems like everybody still wants to hang on that whole, sexual part of it and overlook the underlying, emotional stuff that he's gone through. And of course he hides it. I'm sure he has to hide a lot of it and act like, oh yeah, I was his lover and he had this, that, and the other thing. But deep down inside, you could tell from his interview that, he's got a lot of unresolved issues and hurt too.
Right, like
but because he's a guy,
would.
He's got to walk around like he's all, he's okay with whatever.
Well, let me tell you a few things on how I felt. Number one, during the interview, I noticed, you started to tear up a little bit.
Yeah, I did.
And so, me as a man, I very much appreciate a woman who has a motherly or nurturing instinct, right?
Yeah.
So that reminds me of, one of the reasons why I want to be with you. Right, because I could see it right there.
Darn, I thought it was because of my smile and stuff. No.
Well, yeah, that's the other part.
Or my cooking. Well, no, my cooking's not that great though. It's always the same thing: chicken and turkey.
See, that's the
He's
funny.
Actually easy
that's
to
the
cook
funny
for.
thing too. When you tell a woman something really positive about.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate that, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm actually saying something nice about the core of you as a human being.
Thank you.
And then you want me to come back and compliment your hair. See,
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I appreciate that.
See, now when I was young or a teenager, I might look at a girl's only her looks and compliment her on her looks.
Just so you get your own way.
Right, but she would be angry at me because I didn't compliment her on who she really was. See how these things change?
I know. You guys are damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Part of the problem is that you have to, tell people or your partner exactly what you need sometimes.
Yep.
Because it's like I'm trying to hit a moving target. Right?
No, I appreciate you being okay with who the person that I am, because that's who I am and it's not going to change. So the outside of me is going to change. So if that's the only thing that you're liking, then you're going to be in trouble in another 25 years.
Yeah, aren't we all? But, so let me go back to that for a second. No, seriously, the emotion that you showed, I really like that as a personal thing. Also, the way we did the show,
Yeah.
I think you're right. We did it in a way that nobody else has done it. So here's the other thought that I had. I don't know if anybody out there remembers, Muhammad Ali in his prime, but he was obviously great as a boxer. And his sparring partner was Larry Holmes. And he used to torture Larry Holmes. But as time goes on, Muhammad Ali got very old, and Larry Holmes moved into his prime. Mm-hmm. And at some point, Larry Holmes had to fight him in a professional fight. And Larry Holmes beat the heck out of Muhammad Ali, and he did not want to. There was a part of him that felt sad because that's who he looked up to his whole life. Now, taking it from that, I've always been a Howard Stern fan since I was in high school. That's how long and I actually trained him, so I know him on a personal basis. And I look at some of these people like Barbara Walters, and I do have a certain amount of respect for these people. But now as I get older and I'm getting a little more knowledge about how to talk to people and getting a counseling degree, I realize that some of these people are not what I thought they were. So what happens is now we have a chance to put our interview side by side with Howard Stern's. And what ours comes out to be is what you said, a very emotional thing where, it affected you and it affected him as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was a very important thing, and it came out so much better than Howard Stern's. Now, here's the thing. Part of me feels really happy and proud. The other part of me feels a little sad that a guy who I looked up to really is just a guy with a microphone and Tourette's syndrome. He doesn't really know how people are. So that bothers me a little bit. But this is what bothers me the most, if you were really going to ask. And you wouldn't think to ask. But here's the thing. People like Oprah, right? She makes like $1 billion. Mm-hmm. Howard Stern makes about $100 million per year. Then you get Barbara Walters. They're all richer than rich.
I have to say, though, of all those reporters you mentioned, not to whatever, but I think Barbara Walters is a little bit more heartfelt sometimes in her interviews,
I think
she did kind of touch on that emotionally, but they did shut her down because they don't want to hear it. It's about reporting, and it's almost that they have to report the sleaziest, dirtiest crap about people, and that makes me aggravated too and sad because is that what people really want to hear? That's another sad thing.
And the honest truth is, I don't know if that's what they want to hear or that's all that they're exposed to. But my thing is this, is that as a man, part of what I want to do is to be able to provide. That's an important thing as a man. So, of course, I would like to be able to provide for you better than what I am. Now, when I go to bed at night, I felt really good and really proud over that interview, that we did a better interview than these famous people who are making millions, if not billions of dollars.
It's a great interview.
But here's the thing. When I go to bed at night, then what happens is I wake up in the morning and I realize that I don't have $1 million for you like these people do. So as a man, it's tough because what you try to do is you try to live a life of integrity on one side. And on the other side, you realize if you drop some of that integrity, you can probably make more money. So society thinks you might be a better person because you make more money. Now, knowing that you're a woman, and of course, being in society, as a man, I might worry down the road that there's other people out there that might make more money than me. You know what I'm saying? That's the way guys think.
I don't think that way, and I'm assuming a guy would think that way, I guess, or you think that way, but the other part of that is that you're with somebody that has integrity also, and you know that. So it's not about the money to me either, and I don't care about that, but I guess if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, and I'm sorry you feel that way, but you don't need to.
Listen, I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to make it too personal, but what I'm definitely trying to do is I'm trying to take the place, again, of a lot of men's voices out there.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of men feel.
Listen, women at the end of the day, they want a good, loving, caring man. There's a thing out there that says, they only like the bad boys, and they only like the guys that treat them like garbage. Well, that's not true. I don't think that's necessarily true. That comes down to women's self-esteem issues. When women, it's not about the guy at that point. It's about the woman. If she feels bad about herself, she thinks that's all she deserves, and that's what she's going to get. So it's really about her, not the guy. And there are a lot of good guys out there, and at the end of the day, a good woman, right, she wants a good guy, and it's not always about money.
Okay.
It's not.
All right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to lay it out there just because I know women are listening, right? 67% of our audience is women. And I want them to know that that's part of what men think, including me. Like last week, I was so proud. And then you wake up the next morning and you realize that you're not one, you don't have one extra dollar because of it. All you have is your pride, which is great. But my extra pride that I get doesn't feed you better, right? And there's probably a guy down the street who's a piece of garbage who has got more money. So, that's just the way men think.
I can detect the pieces of garbage.
Anyway, so what I'd like to do also is talking about people with integrity. I was going to do this last week, but of course we had that interview last week, so I was not able to get to it. But on this show, of course, we really appreciate people with integrity. And one of them is Pepe Marcello of the Good Rats. He was in a band on Long Island. And last week, July 10th, Pepe Marcello, he died of a heart attack. He was 68 years old. And he was revered around Long Island. But Rolling Stone magazine had voted him, or his band, the #1 band in the world that you have never heard of.
I know, I never heard of him. When you told
Nobody
me,
has. Only on Long Island has people have
Mike,
heard.
have you heard of them?
Of Pepe Marcello.
Mike?
No, I haven't heard of him.
No, yes, you have. Are you heard of for real?
No, I have not heard of him. Not unless I've heard the particular song that you guys sent in that I've got ready to go at any time. But no, I haven't heard of him.
So that makes my point. But we'll talk about it.
Because I thought you would, because you seem to be.
That's what I'm saying. Even the people who love music don't know who he is outside of, say, Long Island, possibly New York City, New Jersey. But that's just. But here's some of the reasons why. Number one, he put his family first. He was, obviously Pepe Marcello, Italian guy, very Italian.
Yeah.
And what he did was he obviously played music all these years, but he put his family first. He really was not into doing long national tours or world tours. He stayed around his family. He raised his family. That's what he did. He was a family man. As a matter of fact, my father has a great story. When I was 15 years old, my father used to take me to a boxing class. I think it was like once or twice a week. And Pepe Marcello was always there. He took his son. He was just a normal, average, everyday guy taking his son to boxing class. He used to hang out and talk to my dad.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. My dad's like, hey, this Pepe Marcello, he's into that rock music that you listen to so much.
Oh, wow.
He was just a normal guy. So I always just remembered that. He was very much revered. As a matter of fact, when I used to walk down Grand Avenue, and if anybody knows about Baldwin, you know what Grand Avenue is, there was this club. I can't think of the name of it anymore. But the window was low enough that if you got up on your tippy toes, you could see into the club. And I was like 15 or 16, so were my friends. We'd always walk by on a Friday or Saturday night and look in. And, of course, we'd always get chased away.
Oh, God.
Because we were underage, right?
Yeah.
But we would look in, and we got the greatest shots. You could always hear the music, but you could see. And some of the bands that played there were obviously the Good Rats, the Rat Race Choir, who you don't know who they are either.
I don't know who they are either.
But Twisted Sister.
Yeah, I like Twisted Sister.
Yeah, so we were able to see these bands through this window, looking up and, trying to get in, until we got chased away. So I really appreciate him. And around in the high schools, we had a lot of bands played. And some people would look up to Pepe Marcello and the Good Rats and the Rat Race Choir, bands like this, more than the Rolling Stones or the Who, because they were there. They were right in the mix of everything.
Wow.
So, yeah, they were very important. So just to show you how important they really are, they were inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, which you might think is not a big deal. But we're going to have a little contest here, and we have Mike to help you out. Let's take a city like Seattle, who's known for their music. You can, any genre you want. I don't care what it is. You go grunge, you can go, doesn't matter. I'll spot you one. You can get Jimi Hendrix if you want. For every band you name...
Oh, my God, Joe, you took one of my names.
Oh, well, you can say it. For every band you name, I'm going to name a band that's in the Long Island Hall of Fame, and then at which the Good Rats sit comfortably within all of these bands. So go ahead, name one.
Heart.
I will say Kiss. Kiss is in the Long Island Hall of Fame. Any others?
Bruce Springsteen.
No, from Seattle.
Oh, they have to come from Seattle?
Yeah, you go from Seattle, and I'm going to pick from Long Island.
Nirvana.
Okay. I'll go with Twisted Sister then.
Jimi Hendrix. You stole my name. Sorry,
Jimi
Joe.
Hendrix? Okay, I'll go with the Blue Oyster Cult. I understand Jimi Hendrix is bigger than Blue Oyster Cult, but I'll go with Blue Oyster Cult. You got anything else?
Strictly from Seattle.
Seattle. Better known from Seattle. You can even, because actually Pearl Jam is not from Seattle, but you can call them a Seattle band if you like. I'll give you that.
Wasn't Soundgarden from Seattle?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
So we'll go Soundgarden. I'm going to go with Billy Joel.
Can't beat that. I mean, game's over.
Right. I mean, so Seattle's known for music, right? Okay, so I'm destroying you. Am I not?
Well, yeah, you're so far.
Okay, let me finish this up because this is a tribute to Pepe Marcello, but I just want to tell you who his name sits right next to, just so everybody knows. Dream Theater, the Ramones, Lou Reed, Simon and Garfunkel, Harry Chapin, Walter Becker from Steely Dan, Eddie Money, the Stray Cats, Neil Diamond. Those are most of the men. Most. There's more. Let me go with the women. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. Now, you took Heart, right,
Yeah.
for your Seattle band for women. I'm going to hit you with Barbra Streisand, Mariah Carey, Pat Benatar, Carole King, and Cyndi Lauper. Who wins this fight?
I guess Long Island does.
Strong Island wins this. No problem. So, Pepe Marcello is among all these people, even though outside of New York, people don't know who he is. So what we're going to do, I want to play a song by the Good Rats, of course, and I'm very proud to do this. This song is so good. Let me tell you another reason why he didn't make it big. It's because he can do equal Freddie Mercury style singing, barbershop quartet. They play jazz, blues, hard rock, any style you want. And this particular song, it actually comes out as a music tutorial for musicians. So not only is it entertaining, but it teaches you how to be a good musician. So we're going to play this. This is by the Good Rats. This is a song called Tasty.
Hey, paperback writer.
This is Joe Cronin.
And Heidi Mancini.
And you are now listening to the From Grief to Relief show on VegasAllNetRadio.com. We are heard live every Thursday between 2 and 3 p.m. We will also be rebroadcast on Saturday at 8 a.m. and Monday at 10 a.m. And you can also buy the From Grief to Relief book on Amazon.com.
And also, too, you can go on the website, Vegas All Net Radio, the From Grief to Relief page, and you can go to our archives, and you can re-listen to the shows, too. All the shows are there that we've done, and they're posted, so you can also go there and find maybe something interests you there.
Oh, well, thanks. I forgot to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I already felt like
you said enough.
Yeah, I already felt like I was over-promoting as it is.
No, you're not. You have to.
Yeah. All right, so today's show, we're going to cover some questions that we were going to do last week. We were going to do a show on questions that women might have for men. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I'm going to represent all men, and Heidi is going to represent all women. Plus, besides all the women that you talk to that have questions, right?
Well, they're all the same.
They're all
Most of the questions are always the same.
All right.
You hear the same stuff, so there's something to it.
So I'm assuming... Well, I shouldn't assume anything. What's the first question going to be so I can kind of get an idea of what I'm supposed to do here?
Why don't men have feelings?
Why don't men
Or why don't they
have
show their feelings? Or that's the common thing. Men don't have feelings. They don't feel like we do. They don't show their feelings. They're not emotional. They're, blah, blah, blah. That's a woman's complaint all the time.
That's true. And that's the end of a lot of relationships.
Yes, it is.
Or at least it causes a lot of fights.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, let me ask you something about feelings. Last week's show, we had Scott Thorson.
Yes. It was a very good show.
So tell me what you thought about it, because I have feelings on that, too, that you might not even think about.
Well, I thought it was a very good show. I thought it came together really nicely, and we stayed on the subject that we wanted to, because we didn't want it to be about, the sex and the way the other interviews seemed to be going. Wanted to keep it more about him, and, it kind of touched me because I felt, sympathy for him,
Right.
That he had gone through all that garbage, and of course he's still being, almost, I don't want to say made fun of, but it seems like everybody still wants to hang on that whole, sexual part of it and overlook the underlying, emotional stuff that he's gone through. And of course he hides it. I'm sure he has to hide a lot of it and act like, oh yeah, I was his lover and he had this, that, and the other thing. But deep down inside, you could tell from his interview that, he's got a lot of unresolved issues and hurt too.
Right, like
but because he's a guy,
will.
He's got to walk around like he's all, he's okay with whatever.
Well, let me tell you a few things on how I felt. This is Joe Peroni.
And Heidi Mancini.
And you are back listening to the From Grief to Relief show.
That was a good song, Joe.
Yeah, rest in peace, Pepe Marcello.
Pepe Marcello.
There's a man with integrity and feeling.
Yeah.
Another great example of that. Okay, so your question, why don't men have feelings? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Now, there's a big difference, right, between having feelings. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets a little tricky.
Sticky.
Yeah. Feelings are what's inside you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's how you react to the outside world inside your body, in your head, right?
Right.
So let's not confuse that, because feelings are involuntary. Those are things that just pop up, right, in your heart and soul, inside. Mm-hmm. So honestly, that's not what we're talking about from a man's point of view. What we need to talk about is the difference between feelings and emotional volatility or emotional reactivity. That's how you react to the outside world. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's voluntary.
True.
Okay, so a man can have a lot of feelings inside, but what comes out may not be what you expect.
Yeah, true.
Right, because we act differently. It's like, you like dogs, but you're not going to dislike a dog because he doesn't climb a tree. Dogs don't climb trees. Cats do. There's a difference. And so you have to judge them as such. Right. So, men, you can't really judge to see if they have feelings or not, because that's on the inside. It's what comes out that you can judge.
Right.
And the problem with men being emotionally reactive, let's say, is because it's not socially acceptable for a lot of reasons. Number one, we're told since we're children, little boys, that it's a sign of weakness. It puts you in the down position.
Right.
So you can't do that. You can't show emotional reactions like that. You have to say what they say, take it like a man. It's also when you start acting like that, being very emotional, reactive, you can start to kiss your financial life goodbye. Because on the job, nobody wants a person like that. They feel really uncomfortable around you. Also, in areas of romance, do you really want a guy that's that emotionally reactive?
No.
Like a guy filled with fear acts very angry a lot. Do you want to see a guy openly angry?
No.
Probably not. And it's just guys tone it down a little bit.
Right.
Or actually a lot. Because a lot of times when a man gets more emotional, it frightens other people. Now, if you notice when a man watches a football game or any kind of sports, things like that, he's very emotional.
Right.
There's a reason for that. Because it's socially
acceptable.
It's socially acceptable. You can jump around, act like an idiot, cheer, jump off the couch. You can do whatever you want to do. It's a football game or a baseball game, whatever. It's accepted. That's what you do.
Yeah.
When you see men at a concert, like a heavy metal concert, let's say, you can act crazier. It's socially acceptable. But in normal everyday life, it's not. Mm-mm. Boys from a very young age are told that you have to be able to handle your pain. You have to be able to handle your adversity. You're not allowed to cry. On a personal basis, I can tell you the same thing. When I was a child, I was not allowed to cry. I was not allowed to complain. Complaining meant nothing. The only thing it meant is that you were a baby. What you had to do is to handle the problem.
Right.
I remember like in kindergarten or something that we were supposed to line up on this one yellow line. And I remember somebody cut in front of me. And I told my father that. And then what happens is somebody cuts in front of you and they let all their friends go in front of you, and I didn't have any friends. So I told my dad.
Have any friends? Why?
Yeah, well at the time, I was a quiet kid. So I told my dad, this kid stepped in front of me, blah, blah, blah. I was complaining, I didn't have any friends, so I was going to cry. The first move he would do is say, okay, next time he does that, you grab him by the back of the shirt and you pull him down to the ground and start punching his face in. That's what you do. So I did.
That's not good.
Well, you can say that, But you know what? Nobody stepped in front of me anymore.
Okay, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you develop a bit of a reputation as you get older. And then you start doing sports. And sports is the same way. There's no such thing as complaining in sports. You can't do it.
Right.
If you complain, you end up on the bench. You have to somehow overcome your adversity. And if I was hurt, would I complain? You know me now. Do I complain?
No, you don't complain.
Do you know why I don't complain to you when I get hurt?
Because you don't.
Okay. Here's why I don't complain to you when I get hurt. Because you're not a doctor.
Oh.
Right? Like, can you help me? No. If you're a doctor, by all means, I'll let you help me out if that's what I need, if I need medical attention. Other than that, all I'm doing is complaining. And complaining gets me nowhere. And that's just the way men are.
It might, though. You might get a little back rub or something.
That's wimpy.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't want to. So, feelings we have, it's just the way we deal with the feelings. It's our emotions on the outside. Typically, a man would rather not complain and be a martyr and be a victim. What he would rather do is go out and fix the problem as fast as possible. And there's a reason for that. We want to look big, right? We want to look strong. We want to look worthy in a woman's eyes.
True.
And as much as women want men to be a little bit more emotional, is that really true down inside? I mean, I know you want a certain amount of compassion. I get that. But do you really want a guy that comes home and is wimpy and is crying every night over some slight that he got at work?
No.
No. You want a man to stand up for himself and do the job, right? It makes you feel comfortable.
Right.
Right. And that's why men don't like to ask for directions.
Oh,
because
I know, direction thing.
Because you're sitting there
Drive
in a
around
car
for hours, so you don't have to pull over and ask. It's ridiculous.
Right, because women value power. Is that not true? You value power.
I value getting to where I want to get.
But yeah, that's true.
Amount of stress.
That's true. But you also value strength and you value power, and part of that is intelligence.
True.
Right? And you might say the intelligence to ask for directions too. I get that. But part of it is, you know how hard it is for a man to ask another man for help when he's sitting there with a woman? Think about the dynamic. I'm not saying he is smart, for driving around for an hour and not asking for directions. Yeah. But think about how difficult it is emotionally for a man to sit there and go to another man to help you.
Okay.
Like if you're driving down the street, you don't know where you're going, you need a little bit of help, you figure you can do it on your own. One of the reasons why a man feels like he can do it on his own, because he's told he can and he should his whole life. So for a man to stop and admit to another man that he's weak and vulnerable in front of the woman, he might as well say, listen, 4 hours ago we had sex and I couldn't make her have an orgasm. Do you want to help do her? Because I just can't unlock the thing here.
Speaking of that, I got a question about that after you're done.
No, it's the same thing as far as guys are concerned. It's giving up all of your power and control to another man to take care of your woman. That's ridiculous. We wouldn't do that. It is so hard to do. You know how hard it is to swallow your pride? Yeah,
I don't.
It's difficult.
Because I'm not a guy.
So let's talk for a second from an actual psychology position. Okay? Because I get what you're talking about. There needs to be a middle ground, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk from a psychology position. If you're emotionally reactive, that's called a dysfunction, right? That's a dysfunction in the person's personality. It's a childlike defense mechanism to gain power or sympathy from others. Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but there's a really great book out. I think it's by Adam Carolla, and he says, don't worry, in 50 years we're all going to be chicks anyway. And the point is that we're judging men by their ability to be women. I'm not a woman. So you can't judge me as, like, how good am I at being a woman? I'm not. I'm going to be a man. So, like, I don't judge you by your ability never to cry.
True.
Do you notice how I'm circling around here when I told you I appreciated during the interview that you cried? Yeah. I can appreciate that. See, because I love women. So as a person or a man who loves women, I love the characteristics of a woman. Mm-hmm. What I would hope for is that women would love the characteristics of men. And somehow, I would say, what is it now? Like 85% of counselors are women. They're judging everybody by a woman's standard. They're saying men are dysfunctional because they're not acting like women. And that is not true at all. As a matter of fact, you go back in history, ancient Greek and Roman times, like with the Stoics, it was all about living a virtuous life and not being emotional and not doing anything for extra rewards or not trying to get people to have sympathy for you. It was all about being strong of the self, which is still what I carry on today because I do have a Roman tradition, yes?
Yes.
All right.
You do.
Also, being emotionally reactive is considered to be a character weakness, and it does reveal low self-esteem.
Okay.
All right? So outward anger, it feels like a strong emotion, but it's not. It reveals fear. And here's something you probably didn't know. They talk about men and men being aggressive.
Yeah.
Physically, men are more aggressive than women, right? I mean, we knew that. But here's something that's interesting. Women are more verbally and socially aggressive.
True.
They tend
I agree
to,
with that.
right, because they're so emotionally volatile. They're the ones who attack their partners verbally. Right? They're
True.
the ones who threaten.
Well, they attack anybody verbally. They don't care.
Right, they
if it
attack
is.
the other women. Am I right?
Other women, whatever. Yeah.
The term catty comes to mind, right?
Yeah, women are catty. They're bitchy.
Oh, I'm going to let you say that. So women are more socially aggressive. So in other words, they're the ones who threaten the relationships more often than men do.
Yeah.
So men are trying to hold a relationship together, if you can believe it. You know, but they try to do it by having less drama,
Well,
not
yeah.
more.
And women are too full of drama, that's for sure.
Now, I'm not saying men are perfect here, by the way, because I don't want it to get to be
A woman basher.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't want it to be a battle of the sexes.
Right.
You know, that's not really what I'm after here. It's that I want women and you, or, you know, because you're representing women, to understand the other side.
Right.
And not to say that it's wrong or right, but just to understand where it comes from. Because there's, 3 billion men on the planet,
Yeah.
and most of them act
The same.
fairly similarly. So there's a reason for that. You know, they do what works for them. They do what they're taught to do. And they do what's biologically normal for them. So to say that they're wrong or they're bad would not make sense. That would
No.
be just trying to cause a fight. You know, so your job would be to, I would say, to try to understand and ask more questions.
Well, understanding and communication, it always comes down to the same thing, communication. And it's how you ask the question.
Right.
You know, when you say, well, how are you feeling? And, or how does this make you feel? I think the better question is, how does this make you feel right now? Because when you say, how are you feeling, most men would say, I'm fine, I'm good, it's all good. Where if you'd say, how are you feeling right now, you know, you have to get a better answer, because then they have to tell you, well, I'm feeling stressed right now. Why are you feeling stressed? You know, and I think if a lot more men would open up, there would be a lot less frustrated men walking around out there too. Because there's other issues that go along with that. We know that there's more men that are alcoholics than women.
Well, you're right about that.
There's like a lot of coping mechanisms there, because men are not allowed to vent and let it out.
No, you're right. I mean,
you know,
that whole thing about holding it in and being the tough soldier,
yeah,
it hurts men too. You know, like I understand. You know, I mean, I'm not a woman, but I can hear you, so I can understand it. How it would hurt a woman in a relationship. I get that. But it's not one way. It's a two-way street, and it also hurts the man.
Right.
A lot. So I wasn't... You know what? I actually wrote out a story. Do you want? It takes a little while for me to get through it. Is it going to bore you to death, or you want me to read it?
You can read it.
Yeah? All right. This is about a boy. Don't read into this. Well, you can, I guess. Ask yourself if this is an autobiographical story or not.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Okay. All right, here it goes. Here's my story. Once there was a very young boy who had feelings. He had many feelings, and he felt them every day. His family liked him when he showed his feelings. So the very young boy started to wear his feelings on his sleeve. And one day, the young boy's parents said that they didn't like to see the fear that he showed anymore. So the small boy tried to hide his fear. And the parents said that they would give the young boy some toughness to cover up the fear. The young boy found it very difficult to cover up the fear with this new toughness. So the other parent and the grandparents all helped, and it took many days. "Now you look wonderful," said the parents when it was done. "We've covered some of your feelings with toughness, and you now will grow into a very strong man." Are you with me?
Yeah, they're covering up all his feelings.
Okay. The young boy grew a little older and found a friend. The friend also wore his feelings on his sleeve. The friend said one day, "My parents want me to cover up my lonely feelings and to be different from now on." And he was. And the young boy decided to cover up his lonely feelings also. And they got angry feelings from another adult. The young boy put big patches of angriness on top of his loneliness, and it was hard work to cover all of that loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
One day when the young boy, who's now not so young, he went to school, and some of his lonely feelings started to show. So the teacher kept him behind and gave him some guilt to cover up his lonely feelings. And sometimes when alone at night, this little boy, who is now not so little, would look at his feelings. He would pull off the toughness and pull off the angry and all the guilt, and he would look at himself, and he would see only the lonely and fear. Then he would have to take a very long time trying to put back on all the toughness, angry, and guilt back again, so the world could see. One night the boy noticed that his lonely and fear were growing, and they were beginning to stick out from under all his patches. So the boy had to go out and find some more angriness to cover up his loneliness. And he got all the toughness that his parents could spare to cover up his fear, because fear is bad for a boy. The boy grew older and became very popular because everyone said he could hide his feelings so well. The person's parents said one day that they had a proud feeling because their boy had been so tough. But this boy could not find anywhere to put his proud feelings because there was no room, because toughness was getting too big. The boy had trouble finding room on his sleeve for any other feelings. The toughness and the angry feelings were all that seemed to show. Then after a time, the boy met another person and they became friends. They thought that they were a lot alike because they both had only tough, angry feelings that showed. One day the friend told the boy a secret. "You know, I'm not really like you. My toughness and my angriness are just patches. They're fake, and they're there to cover up my loneliness and my fear." So the friend pulled back the edge of his toughness and showed the boy his fear. Just for a second. Hold on a second. I wrote this song. Okay. The boy sat quietly and did not speak. Then carefully he too pulled back the edge of his toughness and showed his fear. The friend saw the lonely underneath. Then the friend gently reached out and touched the boy's fear, and then the lonely. The friend's touch was like magic. A feeling of acceptance appeared on the boy's sleeve, and the toughness and angry had started to become smaller. The boy then knew that whenever that someone would actually accept him for who he actually was, he didn't need to be as tough. And there would actually be more room for him to be proud and to show sadness and to be loving and to be strong and to be good and to be warm and to show that he can be hurt and that sometimes he actually did have fear.
That's very good.
That's the end of my story.
That's good.
That was hard to read, by the way.
Good tell. Good job.
Anyway, what I want to do here is let's go to a 5-minute piece here. It's called "Do Men Deal with Their Feelings?" And it's going to talk about some of the things that we've already talked about, and I would like your opinion on some of it when we get back.
I'll make sure I listen.
So hopefully if you're listening to this on the archives, do not fast forward this. This is really, it's an awesome piece, and I really want you to hear it. I'll see you in 5 minutes.
You're not dealing with your feelings. Are you tired of being told you're not dealing with your feelings? If so, keep watching. When people think of healing in our culture, they will usually think of crying openly, talking about your difficulties, and talking about the past. Many women find this approach very helpful and fulfilling. Many men do not. But are men deficient because they're not like most women? Absolutely not. When I first started doing therapy with men fresh out of grad school, it looked like men were deficient. I worked in a clinic with all female therapists except for me and was given most of the male clients since the females didn't want to work with the men. This left me with a huge caseload of men and floundering since what I'd been taught in grad school was not working so well with the men. I needed to find out what helped men and find out quickly. As I struggled with this, I slowly started to realize that there wasn't something wrong with the men. There was something wrong with the therapy. What I'd been taught in grad school had been built to help women, help them talk, help them emote, and help them talk about the past. Worked well with women, but it wasn't so hot in working with men. Therapy basically ignored a man's way. What I eventually found was that men tend to heal through their action and do so through honoring and changing the future. Notice this is markedly different from the standard interaction, open emoting, and talking about the past of traditional therapy. But how did I come to these conclusions? One of the first things that tipped me off that men had a very different way to heal was when I ran into the cross-cultural research on grief. It showed repeatedly that indigenous people tend to give men actions following a loss, but give women a safe place to talk and emote. The picture you see is of the Yolma men of Australia doing the shark dance at a funeral in honor of the deceased. Their actions honor the person who died, who is just out of sight. This is just one example among many. The literature showed that men were almost always the ones to do things like dig the grave, care for the body, do the ritual, etc. So I started watching men's actions after a loss or trauma and started seeing things I'd completely missed before. Men use action rather than interaction to tell their story, and most people, including the men, simply don't see it. Next, I ran into the research of Shelley Taylor, Ph.D., who studied women and stress. Taylor found that women, when stressed, don't fight or flight. They instead tend and befriend. In other words, women will move towards interaction when stressed, while men move towards action. This confirmed what I'd been seeing clinically. The more I looked, the more I saw that men were indeed dealing with their feelings, but instead of talking and emoting openly, they were taking actions that honored the loss. The men were doing this automatically and without prompting. It seems that it's simply a natural response which I had previously missed. A quick example might be Eric Clapton. Clapton's son died in a tragic accident which left Clapton in what he described as a waking nightmare. How did he respond? He secluded himself and played guitar for long periods. Eventually, 3 songs came forth: Tears in Heaven, My Father's Eyes, and The Circus Left Town. Each of these songs is about his waking nightmare. Can you see how Clapton's actions of playing the guitar and writing the songs were helping him process his emotions? Did he go into therapy? No. He used his own action to honor his loss and his son, and through those actions he told his story. Not through interaction, but through action and honoring. When asked about how hard it might have been to write the songs, Clapton responded, "Playing the guitar was actually the solution." I wrote a book titled Swallowed by a Snake, The Gift of the Masculine Side of Healing, that explains this process in more detail. The book is in its 2nd edition since the year 2000. And recently I wrote a very concise ebook that updates the Snake book and also offers tips for helping men heal. I also have built a video site that includes a video book of about 2 hours of video that tell the same story, but in video form. If you're interested, go to the link in the info box, and when you see the form, enter the coupon Men Are Good to get half off the admission price. We need to be teaching our boys and our men about their unique paths and start shutting down the people who are shaming men for not dealing with their feelings. It's really time. And don't forget, men are good.
This is Joe Peroni,
Heidi Mancini.
and you are back listening to the From Grief to Relief show. Did you?
Yeah, that was
like
very
any of that?
good. Yeah, it brings things a little more clear, and that men are good.
Interestingly enough, a lot of that goes back to ancient times, how men are. It's only been fairly recently, and a cultural thing in the United States, that people are expecting men to act like women. And that's where a lot of the difficulty is.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that I think men need to change to be women,
No.
although they need to change a little bit, because I understand, right, that it'll be hurtful for a woman not to understand what's going on inside a man's head.
Right.
So they need to bend a little. But I think women on the other side also, if they want to be in a relationship with the man, they have to understand how the man works.
Right.
And so
Well,
a
I
lot
think
of the
it's-
show today, I think, is like a how-to, or,
Yeah.
kind of like an instructional manual,
Yeah.
so to speak. Interestingly enough, there's a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's the emotive center of the brain. And with women, it's more developed. Now, not to, like that could be a bragging piece, right, for women, but the other part is that men can compartmentalize things better. So it's,
Yeah.
6 to 1, half dozen of the other. They're just different. But with a stronger emotive center of the brain, women tend to ruminate more, meaning that they tend to go over and over and over again in their head negative thoughts.
The endless tape.
Right, without trying to fix it. So they hold on to it, like they said in the...
It's like the story's
And
going to
that's it.
change because you keep talking about it.
Right, so they tend to talk and interact, whereas men act. They try to figure out the problem. So I think a lot of people don't understand that men's feelings are very, very deep-rooted. They have those. And I've got some numbers for you just so... You know what? Let me ask you this question, though, just to be fun. I'm going to name 3 things. You tell me what they have in common. The Taj Mahal, the song Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, and the first guitar ever made.
A woman.
All 3 were created by a man to honor a woman. Now go back over history and you tell me how many times a woman has done something to create something beautiful for a man that will live forever. Typically what a woman will say is, I bared your child. But that's a little narcissistic, because you're not bearing anything, right? In other words, it sounds like it's hard labor that you don't want to do. It's your child. You love that child. So let's not use the word, I bore this for you. Like, you're not digging a ditch. You're having a child. Okay? That's number 1. And number 2, it's your child too. So
True.
you didn't just, I bore you a child. Like, you hear that throughout history.
Labor pains are very bad. Though,
I understand that. Listen, I will never have those, and I understand that from what I hear, it must be incredibly painful. And I'm sure every man is totally appreciative of what women have to go through. But what I'm trying to say is that some of the greatest things on this face of the planet were created by men directly for women to show how much love. When you go through the history of the United States or the world, you tell me who the greatest poets are. There's 1 or 2 women that are in the list of the top 100, but they're all men. I don't care where you go. You go to Shakespeare, it doesn't matter. You go with all the great musicians of the world, they're all men, because they have incredible feeling. Men, incredible feeling. Think about patriotism for a second. Think about family, justice, loyalty, virtue, heroism. All of these things that men do. Men are stewards not just of the child that they created, but they're stewards of the world. Admittedly, they mess up a lot. But typically, a lot of wars are because you're trying to steal resources from another area to bring resources into your area to help your family.
Right.
So there's going to be wars until the end of the earth, but that's besides the point. Let me just read you some numbers here. Do you realize that 1.4 million U.S. men have died in war? In the United States citizens, I'm talking about. 1.4 million United States men have died in war, so women could have the right to say that they have no feelings. Did you think about that? Men are 17 times more likely to commit suicide when their spouse dies than a woman. That shows, number 1, they can't really handle their intense feelings. I get that. But also that their feelings are so intense. And the thing is, does anybody care? 40%, Well, let's go this way. 70% of homeless people in the United States
Are men.
are men. 70% of the homeless are men. 40% of those have served in our military. They're veterans. When you take that number, and they have given and given and given, they have given their heart, their soul, their emotions, their feelings, their body parts. Do you realize that 85% of donated funds goes to help women in this country? Again, that's not a battle of the sexes. It's just men are the homeless ones. Men are the ones dying. Men are the ones that are the firemen, the cops, putting their lives on the line. And 85% of the money goes towards helping women. Men don't begrudge that. We don't. We just would like to say that acknowledge men for who and what they are. They're not beings with no feelings and no emotions. They put their life on the line. Men, if they do cry, there's a term we call it. Men, if they do cry, we cry in the shower. And
You told me that, and I was like, crying in the shower.
yeah. Well, I know you're going to laugh at that,
I'm
but
not
that would
laughing,
not be the
Joe. I'm
appropriate
just like,
response
I was like, okay,
when we talk about men.
laughing in the shower.
But there's two reasons, and I have a guy right here that can vouch for me. If men cry, there's two ways that we cry. Okay, we cry alone. That's what I meant by in the shower. We cry alone because you're not allowed for anybody else to see it. That's number one. Or you cry in the shower because the water's coming down, so you can't tell if you're crying or not. So that term means, number one, men cry in the shower. It means that A, you either cry alone or you cry in a place where it's okay to cry, and only in that place. In other words, Mike, have you ever had to put your dog down? Have you ever had an animal that needed to put down?
Yeah, sure have.
Did you cry?
Sure did.
And you felt okay because that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Anybody in your family ever?
Sure. I've buried family members.
You have, and you cried at a funeral.
Yes, but more towards a private moment when I had a chance to take that private moment.
And so even in a moment of incredible grief, you still felt a little strange to show that in front of people.
At a younger age, yeah. I think at a younger age, too. But as I've gotten older, I've loosened up, I guess, a little.
Okay. Yeah, and hopefully, we all do. But, yeah, we're very much tied to our past when we're young, and we're told not to do it. So that's what I mean. That's men cry in the shower. We cry in only places where people will not notice, or if everybody's crying, then you could kind of slip in a tear or two, and no one will say that you're any worse. What do you think?
I don't know what to say. Actually.
Oh.
I mean, I don't.
So did you hopefully...
I was just thinking of my dad when you said that, and I've never saw my dad cry. So I'm
believe me, though, he has.
Oh, I'm sure
I know he has. So we have very little time left. Let me just add this. A definition of maturity is to think, to act, and to speak within the bounds of dignity, no matter how you feel. And that's another reason why men do care about other people's feelings. Because when you cry and you emote uncontrollably, you're putting it on the other person.
Right.
And so you care about other people's feelings by holding in your feelings a little bit, so you don't try to lay it out on other people and to try to control them. All right. Well, thank you for listening today. My name is Joe Peroni.
And Heidi Mancini.
And thanks for listening to the From Grief to Relief show.
Opinions expressed on this program were those and guests and did not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.